Hi, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I'm a law school study helper. That was the name given to me at birth. My mom had a wicked sense of humor. Let's just dive into it and start talking about how you, a little baby bird 1L, can be better at IRACing and the things that I used that helped me. Where are my notes? I can't find my notes. Looking for the notes.
That is the voice of an angel.
Okay. So let's get crazy and delve into each component of the IRAC method so you can get better at understanding how to IRAC cases. We're going to use the Worldwide Volkswagen Corp versus Woodson case as the hand-on example. If you haven't read that case, it doesn't necessarily matter, but it would be a hell of a lot more helpful if you did.
Watch your profanity.
Because obviously that's the rules ever. So first, the issue, right? So this is the legal question or questions that the court is being asked to answer. And so
what's the problem?
obviously, if you didn't know before, IRAC is issue, rule, analysis, and conclusion, right? So first being the issue, what's the issue of the case? And so that's the legal question or questions the court is being asked to answer. So for the Volkswagen case, the issue is, can an Oklahoma state court exercise personal jurisdiction over a non-resident car distributor and dealer based on the fact that a car they sold in New York caused an injury in Oklahoma, right? So when reading the case now, how are we supposed to identify the issue? Well, we have to read the case closely and figure out the central question that's being asked in the case, or potentially multiple questions. This stems usually from a disagreement between parties. There's obviously laws and rules, and usually it comes from a fundamental issue of reading of that rule or element. So the issue can be formulated as a question, and it needs to capture the essence of that disagreement that you're going to break down, analyze, and then give your conclusion on. Okay, so some tips for you 1Ls regarding the issue statement is that you need to keep it concise. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't need to be long and drawn out. It's very short and sweet.
You can say that again.
So you need to avoid unnecessary facts. You need to make the issue broad enough to apply to different scenarios, but specific enough to guide your legal analysis properly. Now that we've done the issue, the second part is the rule in the IRAC. Duh. So this is the legal principle, which is usually a statute, case law, or regulation that will be used to resolve the issue, right? So you have this question, and this is the part that you're going to latch on to hopefully explain or give the conclusion to the issue that you're having, right? So you're going to have the rule that applies to the issue, and then later you're going to explain the rule outright to better solve that issue you're having. So the Volkswagen case rule is a court can exercise personal jurisdiction over a non-resident defendant if the defendant has certain minimum contacts with the state such that maintaining the lawsuit would not offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Okay, see, that's a lot of nothing.
Oh, now I see. Now I get it.
So that's the rule, and then later we're going to explain what those certain terms mean and how they apply to our facts at hand, right? So when you're reading the case, how can we identify the rule? Well, first, looking for legal standards the court cites helps. Oftentimes the rule is a restatement of precedent or derived from statutes. The rule sets the framework for your analysis. So some tips for 1Ls on the rule statement that may help going forward in your studies is that in class, you really do need to pay attention and take good notes. So professors will often emphasize important rules or things that they deem are important enough, which will be on the test, right? So when reading a case, look for the court's statement of the law, especially when they cite previous cases, statutes, or constitutional provisions. Usually cases, when explaining laws, all go together, so they will be mentioned multiple times when you read a case. And then third, and probably the most important from a points perspective on the final exam, and what your professors will want to see, and let's be honest, all we really care about,
Okay.
is the application section. This is where you apply the rule to the facts of the case in order to come to a conclusion. So you're going to get a fact pattern, and you have to figure out, oh, that case that I read 4 months ago with this rule applies to this fact pattern. And in the application section, I need to explain the rule and why it applies in the arguments. So for Worldwide Volkswagen and Seaway did not have sufficient context with Oklahoma. So that's a conclusatory statement, right? So you can't, like, the way people don't get all the points they should on tests is that's the only thing they'll say. So now you need to have facts to support that conclusion. They did not sell or ship cars to Oklahoma and focus their operations in New York. The mere possibility that a car could cause harm in Oklahoma doesn't establish minimum contacts. These are all facts to support our rule and conclusion.
That's exactly the answer I wanted.
We can develop the application by taking each aspect of the rule and analyze it against the facts of the case. This is often the longest part of your analysis. So be methodical and use logic to move from point to point. This is truly the most important and where you get the most points, and ultimately you can brag to your friends about what awesome grades you received, because we know how much law students love to talk about grades.
But, yeah! In your face!
So here are some tips regarding the application for you 1Ls. Think about the application section as a puzzle. You're trying to fit the facts of the case into the framework of the rule. This is where critical thinking and argument skills come to play. So always ask yourself, does this fact satisfy this element of the rule? Why or why not? And make sure you argue for both sides, even if one particular argument isn't the best. Say it anyways. Don't be stingy with the word count.
Idea what is going on right now.
And then last, we have the conclusion in our IRAC. This is your answer to the issue based on your application of the rule to the fact. So for Worldwide Volkswagen, the conclusion is the Oklahoma State Court cannot exercise personal jurisdiction over Worldwide Volkswagen and Seaway Volkswagen because they lacked the minimum contacts with the state. So how did we arrive at this conclusion?
This is very complicated.
By summarizing the result of our application. This can be short and straightforward. You can also mirror your issue statement, which is what my legal writing professor always told us to do. Not a flex. The issue statement is a question, and the conclusion is just the answer to that question. As silly as it might seem at the time, when you're typing away for 30 minutes, you need to write a conclusion to get points. It's low-hanging fruit, just do it. So some tips for 1Ls in the conclusion statement are to try and avoid introducing new ideas or arguments in the conclusion. It should be a natural outcome of your analysis. So if the arguments are A and argument B, and you're arguing what seems like for A, do not come to the conclusion for B, right? It really doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. I mean, hopefully you're right and not wrong, but it's all about getting those points. So making arguments, and even if you come to the wrong conclusion, you'll still get a lot of points and could potentially still get a good grade if you make a good argument. So if you find yourself unsure about the conclusion, recheck your application and ensure your logic is sound. So here's some overall tips for 1Ls. Make sure you practice.
But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
The more you use the IRAC method, the more intuitive it becomes. You can start by IRACing shorter cases and then work your way up. So next, I would get peer reviews. Make study groups. Discuss with classmates. They might offer insights or interpretations you haven't considered. And always seek feedback. Don't hesitate to ask professors or senior students for feedback on your legal analysis. That's what TAs are for. Their brain, ask them. They've done it before. Remember, the first year of law school is all about building foundational skills. You want to do the basics, and you want to get really good at them, and everything else becomes a lot easier. That's one thing I regret not doing. The IRAC method is one of the building blocks of all of that. So with practice and perseverance, you'll master it. Wow, now that you're a Volkswagen and IRAC savant, but if you are still listening, you're insane, and I love you. And as Troy Bolton once famously said, "We're all in this together." Now go do something else that doesn't relate to the law. Please and thank you. Bye.
Done.